Hi, everybody, and welcome to In Her Words. Today's episode really warms my heart. We love Crystal Lowe and Ashley Williams in front of the camera in their numerous Hallmark films, but today we're talking about Make Her Mark, Ashley's brainchild of a women's directing program supported by Hallmark, and Crystal is the first recipient. This program is groundbreaking, and it's supporting women on so many levels. We hope you enjoy. Okay, guys, first of all, I'm just geeking out on getting to talk to you guys because I love you both so much.
Aww.
We love Hallmark, but this Make Her Mark project is so main and main with what women in entertainment is all about, what we're doing. So I was just, when Emma said that she was talking to you guys about coming on the podcast and it launching next week, I'm so excited to talk to you guys. So thank you for making the time. I'm sure you both are super busy with everything that's going on and getting ready to launch Shifting Gears. So thanks for taking the time. So let's dive in. How you guys have been in front of the camera and behind the camera. So how did it come about? How did you decide that Make Her Mark needed to be an initiative and with Hallmark?
Well, that's an Ashley question, so I'm going to let her.
Yeah, I'll take the first question. Yeah, because so this came about because a couple of years ago, I love doing Hallmark movies. It's like we have the greatest job in the whole world. And I did, one of the things that I love so much is telling these sort of female forward stories about usually these professional career women who are not looking for love, but are just sort of like hyper focused and on success, etc. And lo and behold, against their own intentions, are kind of swept off their feet. And they are usually pretty uniquely female stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed a couple of years ago that most of them are directed by the most wonderful, kind, smart, experienced Canadian men. And I just put my hand in the air and said, this is funny, why are most of these directed by men? And, I did approach my incredible bosses at Hallmark and they were like, yeah, we're all over it. We know. The problem is that these movies shoot in 15 days.
Mm-hmm.
And, the scripts are usually like 110 pages and they're really hard for less experienced directors to pull off. And the truth is there just aren't that many female directors out there. And that's obviously something that we've known, forever. Directing is sort of a uniquely male profession. Usually, I should say directing is a traditionally male profession. We could do an entire other podcast about why that is, but that's not why we're here today. So I said, well, we should really do something about this. I realized pretty quickly that just hiring women who weren't equipped to do the 15-day shoot probably wouldn't work because they might mess it up and then they'll probably never work again, right? So I thought, what if we found a way to train up-and-coming female directors and then set them up for success as we employ them in their directorial debut? And then all my Hallmark bosses said, we love this idea. I came to them and I said, let's just do one girl a year. And Lisa Hamilton Daly said, no, let's do 3.
That's amazing.
So that is, that's just sort of a testament and a very unsurprising anecdote about the executive team at Hallmark. They are just so wonderful and kind and encouraging and wanting, always to push the envelope a little bit. So anyway, then we had to go about figuring out, who the girls were. So on a secret mission for about 6 months where I was just watching tons of short films and talking to agents and getting submissions from all over the place. And Crystal had actually been on a list to be considered for directing at Hallmark for years. She was, I mean, I can let her talk about it, but she's an experienced director. She's done some short films. She's been, you know, taking classes and studying it, and has this drive, and just won't quit when it comes to directing. So, you know,
and have you guys worked together before?
No, which is weird.
We've never worked together.
It's weird that we did.
You need to direct me in a movie.
100%. Yes, please.
No, we became friends at an event.
Okay.
And she was telling me about her directing, and then I spoke with Randy Pope about her, and I was like, you know, she's a director. And he said, oh, believe me, we've been following her for years. You know, she might be a really good candidate for the program. So then I interviewed her, but I set it up. I pretended that we were just going for a casual hike.
Which it was better, honestly. It's so much better to be interviewed when you don't know.
But you can't breathe and you're huffing and puffing.
Yeah, and you just...
She also had a 2-year-old strapped to her chest the whole time.
It's true.
I was like, this girl's perfect.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, really, like we sort of, that was really how it came about. And then we did a pretty rigorous interview process after that. Where I had to put her in front of the executive team. They all had to watch her materials. She, you know, had to submit all of her paperwork and do all this stuff. And then we had a final couple of candidates, and she was selected as our first candidate. So that's
that's amazing. Okay, Crystal, now tell your side of that. Let's hear your side. How did you feel about being ambushed to hike, and then being selected and being a part of this?
Well, you know, I had heard rumors about this program for years. Like, I'd heard these like grumblings of like, just wait, that you might have this opportunity, you know. So I was already like driving them nuts. I mean, Randy would get an email from me literally every 6 months. Luckily, I would follow it up with like, here's what I'm doing, just so you know. I want you to give me this, but here's what I'm working on this, so that he knew that I was actively doing it regardless of the program, if it was going to happen or not. The hike was actually amazing because I did not think it was an interview, which is better and brilliant, to be honest, of Ashley, because I think you get to really know somebody when you're just hanging out and you're not, you know, they're not trying to impress you. They're not trying to like get something from you. For me, I've always gone under the school of thought of, I'm never going to ask anyone to give me the fish, but I'm going to ask you to teach me how to fish. If you just teach me, I'll just do it on my own. It's okay. You don't have to give me anything. And most people who've worked to get to that place are already at that place. So like, they don't have time to pull you up. But they can help you laterally. You know, they can give you advice, and then you got to go and do the thing. So I just thought that's what we were doing, you know? So I was like, what about this? How do I do this? And the thing about Ashley, she never says this, so I just say it in every interview. She didn't get paid to do this. You know, like, this is not a job that she was hired to do. She didn't make it. She did not. She did all of this on her own. This is all her doing this on her own because she wants to see women succeed in the industry. That is somebody who's like actively paying it forward, on her own account. That is unbelievable, and it's super inspiring. And on our hike, when we were talking about it, she's honest. I love people that are honest and just talk about the grit, the real stuff that, you know, I just did an interview the other day at this women's summit, and my 2-year-old decided to scoop toilet water out of the toilet, and I could hear him, and then he slipped, and I had to like leave through there, and I had to grab him. He was covered in toilet water, and then he wanted to sit on my lap. And I was like, you know what? This is just real. This is
what it is. Yep.
And guess what? I can still do my job, and I can still have my kid with me with poop all over him, whatever. It doesn't matter, you know, and Ashley is honest like that. So I think we just got along great. And she gave me a lot of other advice just about my acting career. And I was like, literally got in the car and put it in my notes, and then went home and was like, okay, I gotta call so-and-so. I gotta reach out. I did everything she said, you know, right away, because at the end of the day, my expectation wasn't to get anything but advice. And if I'm asking for advice, then I got to take the advice and apply it. She's giving it for free, which is amazing. So anyways, that's what my internal journey was with her. And then when I found out I got it, yeah, I don't know. I have this weird thing about me where like part of my brain is like, no way, I can't believe this is happening, crying. The other part's like, yeah, makes sense. I should be there. I'm going to go. So it's a really weird, like even on the first day of shooting, I was like, I feel really weirdly calm. You know, I was sitting in the car with Mike Barbuto, who's my producer, and I said, God, I really wish we could roll down some hills right now. She was like, what? And I was like, I just wish we could go find some hills and like roll down them, because rolling down hills is like so joyful. It's like the most purest form of joy to me, is being a kid again and doing that. And I feel so much joy right now. He goes, are you nervous? And I was like, no, I'm weirdly, like, it's really weird. So I think I can't, that's the only way I can describe it. It felt like so surreal. Like I couldn't believe this is finally happening. And then on the other hand, I was like, yeah, it's happening because it's supposed to happen, because it was going to happen no matter what. So it was a really weird feeling, to be honest.
So with this being the first one, who are the mentors for this first project and for Shifting Gears? And then Crystal, will you roll into mentoring? Will you move on to mentoring the next group of directors?
Yeah,
I'll just say this part of it, but I'll let you talk about the mentors, but I would love to. 100%. I am obsessed with watching people grow. And if it's so beautiful. I told this story to someone else, but I teach acting, and I had this woman who's in her 60s, started acting, phenomenal. There's something about her. And I'll never forget, she called me from the first job. She works all the time now, and said, Crystal. I go, yeah. She goes, there's a toilet in my trailer. And I was like, okay. She's like, I have my own toilet. And it was so joyful. And I felt so much joy. I was like, you know what? You're right. You do have an awesome trailer with your own toilet. Like, this is amazing. We are doing it. Like, that feeling is the best. So mentoring someone else and watching them go through that, that's like it's such a joyful thing. So I hope so. I'm throwing that out so Ashley knows. But I'll let Ashley answer the other mentor questions.
Yeah. Well, for 2 seconds, let me explain how the program works. Yeah. Okay. So that you can understand sort of, because I did say earlier, we don't just employ women. We, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And it's what, makes our program kind of unique. So we take an up and coming director. She might be right out of film school, but she's probably directed a short film or two. She's probably, taken a bunch of classes. Maybe she's shadowed a little bit. Do you know what shadowing is? Mm-hmm. Okay. So maybe she shadowed a little bit, et cetera. And we pair her with an experienced director of Hallmark movies, somebody who's done 20 Hallmark movies, right? And who's very sort of comfortable and that everybody trusts. So we pair them and we employ that director, that experienced director, and she shadows him for all of prep. So 3 weeks of prep, 3 weeks of shooting, and 3 weeks of and 1 week of post.
Okay.
And then we basically interview everybody involved and say, how did it go? What did you learn? What was hard? Because by the way, shadowing's hard.
It is. Yeah. It is.
I'm actually on a shadow gig right now, and I've done so much shadowing in my life. It's so complicated because you're not really allowed to talk very much. You're really just there to see how this person directs, right? It's not about your opinion. It's, but yet you can't help but sort of have your brain going all the time, but you're also not allowed to judge the choices that they're making, because easier said than done, right? It's a complicated thing. And it's also a long time to be sitting there or standing there all day on set, just watching with no actual job to do. Like the first time I shadowed, my posture got all messed up because I was always hiding behind things. I really wanted to be a fly on the wall and stay away. And I met up with this friend of mine who's a director, and he was like, what's going on with your posture? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you haven't been doing this when you're shadowing, right? He's like, when you're shadowing, you need to conduct yourself like a director who's not talking. And I was like, oh. So anyway, the first part of our program is the shadow does basically 7 weeks of shadowing, and then we employ her if she seems ready and had a good experience. People had a good experience with her. We employ her, and we take either that mentor that she was just shadowing or a different mentor, somebody else who's really experienced in the Hallmark directing world. And that director becomes her creative producer for her directorial debut.
So there's actually potentially two films being made with this new director. One as a shadow, because that's a real movie, and then as your directorial debut as a real movie. Okay, that's fascinating. And for Hallmark, and I don't know if you can answer this question, but they're taking on the budget of I mean, obviously the budget of this project, but are they taking on the budget of employing 2 directors?
Well, we have to pay a director anyway. I remember during the pandemic, I had a meeting with Jimmy Holcomb and Randy Pope that was just called Jimmy, Randy, and Ashley Do Math. It's all about trying to figure out how this would work.
How to work that, because it is. That's a commitment.
Yeah, but it's in the budget to pay a director anyway, and it's in the budget to pay a producer anyway. So, what was really important to me was figuring out, because I've shadowed so much and I've never been compensated for it. What was really important to me is that women didn't have to quit their, or they might have to quit their job or take a break from their job, but we are paying them it's a living stipend basically for the time that they're shadowing. It's not a big number, but it's something so that you can get a rental car if you need it, and you can get groceries, and you can like make your life work a little bit. Was a really important part of that to me. So we worked it out. And of course, Hallmark takes really good care of people and is really loving. So,
well, no, I think that's important for people, listeners. We have, so much of the women in entertainment community are people starting out, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera. And we hear that all the time about, living while you're starting out. And so I think that it's important that you consider that and as you're putting a program together, but also important that the big corporation behind it sees that needs to be done, and sees, and like I said, it's a commitment from them. We don't pretend like they've got all the money in the world and they can just do whatever, but so each of these pieces are thoughtful decisions that are good for the, because you can't have a program and say, we'd love for you to do this, we want you to direct, but we're not going to pay you anything, so good luck.
But that is what a lot of them are. And I think also, because Ashley uses to brag about herself, so I'm going to brag about her. Ashley also, when developing this program, went and met with BIPOC groups, female group, any kind of group, and that she could, to really understand why women and BIPOC women like myself, why there's always that divide, and it's very easy for somebody who has money to go and not need anything and to go shadow and give it up. I have 2 small children. I have a 2-year-old that I have to take. I have to pay for childcare. It costs me money to go shadow. It's not even like I don't get money. I have to pay out to go and do those things. And as a mother who's trying to do this, I needed that stipend. I really did. If I didn't have it, I don't know how I would have done this. I got to pay for my children to have food on the table. So, that was something that she did her due diligence in creating this program, and then fought for it and got it. And I don't think, I just want to make sure she gets that credit, because she won't tell everyone.
It isn't a small thing. It's not a small thing at all on your side to think about it, and on the, like you said, on these amazing, your bosses at Hallmark to say yes to it. It's not a small thing.
And she's trying to close the gap so that it doesn't become a classism thing either. You know what I mean? Because if you have parents who have a lot of money, or you have family who has a lot of money, then it's fine. But then we're not getting new voices.
Right.
That's the whole point of this, is to get new voices in here, and to get voices that don't have all of that. And maybe voices also that our audience can relate to, that are living in smaller towns, communities, living in a different lifestyle. We would love to hear from those voices. So this really made a huge difference in the program.
Yeah, 100%. It was really important to me. Like people always say, like, in terms of the Hallmark Channel, like, our audience loves to see themselves. And I said early on, this would not be a diversity and inclusion program if we can't make it possible for anybody to participate in it. And that means we have to supplement their income. And we do pay them a directing fee for their first job, which is a pretty normal directing fee. And the other thing that makes it a diversity and inclusion program more thoroughly is that, the first year was sort of a pilot program where I, sort of ran around town saying who would be great for my program, just personally. And I sort of by chance found Crystal, and, but what's really exciting is that in a couple of weeks, we're going to be telling you a little bit more about how everybody can apply.
That's amazing.
So stay tuned for some more information there, which I'm really excited about.
That is amazing. So before we get to the actual shifting gears, like, because I want to talk about the film, but so so you said there's 3 for this year, right?
3 for last year and 3 for this year.
3 for last year. So tell us how the directors then will interact with each other. So is it now like a little sisterhood of like do you guys get to work together? Do you get to besides the shadowing opportunity, how do you guys get to meet each other? Because I know they're filming spread out. It's in Vancouver. So how are you building like a community of these women who are getting their first chance here?
I think everyone's texting Crystal all day, every day, but I'm not really text messages, right, Crystal?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was talking to my producer. I was talking to Mike about this the other day because we were talking about how the directing job is actually kind of like a lone wolf job, right? Of everybody on set, the crews all move together, they all work together, producers work together, the actors even sometimes, but the director is like a lone wolf that just kind of comes in and does one thing. Luckily, you know, my community, especially in BC, is very tight. We already know each other. But I also have actively reached out. I've had people reach out to me. I'm like, call me. I'm going to have coffee with every other candidate I can. I want to hear about their life. I want to share mine. Also, nobody wants to listen to me talk about this anymore, except for them. My husband is tapped out. He's like, okay, we've talked enough about this. So they'll listen to me for hours. I'm like, yes, finally, let's discuss directing, you know? So I think, I mean, what would be really cool, actually, I've never even thought of this, is for us to do like a meetup of the women. That would be cool. You know, on one of the movies, do a dinner and all share. That'd be really neat. Maybe we'll.
That would be insane.
It'd be really cool.
It would be like in Back to the Future when you run into yourself, like the world's
right.
It'd be so cool.
Yeah. So for shifting gears specifically, tell me about how. So Ashley, are you a producer on Shifting Gears?
No.
Oh, okay. So you're not involved with with this project at all. So how do you choose, you know, the script and the team and everything that's going to be part of this? How did you know which story would be part of the program? And Crystal, did you have say in which stories they would choose for the program?
Not that part.
And I want to know, will one of them be a Christmas one? That's another.
Yes, we, you know, so I've got this executive team that I work with. It's Randy Pope, Laura Gaines, Kelly Garrett, and myself. And we're in, you know, a couple times a week, we have these meetings to discuss the shadows, potential directing jobs, how it's all going, etc. And so, you know, basically several times, you know, we would say, ooh, this movie was just greenlit. Any chance Crystal could direct it? And there would be some reason why she couldn't, you know, whether it was the wrong city or tonally it was weird or it was in Iceland or whatever. So, and then when this one came up, I remember Randy saying it's actually kind of perfect because it's about like a woman in a traditionally male profession. And I was like, ooh, this is kind of genius. So no, we basically called Crystal and said, can you get on an airplane tomorrow or something, right?
Pretty close.
Yeah. It was like so last minute.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually that was for the first
That was the first round. But the second round I had a little bit of time. I mean, the other good thing is that Joel Rice is the producer of Sign Seal Delivered. All of them. So Joel and I've been working with Muse for like 8 years already. And I know Joel has been championing me in terms of directing for a long time too. And we've been discussing it. So it just all fell together. Although I will say, I thought I was shooting in BC first. And so BC is like, I got everybody there. I mean, those are my people. I've been there for 30 years. And they were like, just joking, Ottawa. And I was like, what?
I don't know anybody in
I thought it was BC too.
Also, and they're like, Canada. And I was like,
to go to Ottawa. I was like, wait,
what? You know, and like also Canada is big, guys. Like just because like that'd be like New York, we're not, you know, and that also ended up to be the best thing that could have ever happened because I got paired up with Mike Barbuto, and he was the best producer I could have gotten. He was literally the perfect fit. We have the same work ethic. We're both crazy. We're both like up till 8 a.m. listening to soundtracks, you know, being like, what do you think of this? I'm like texting and he's fine with that. So we had a really good working relationship. And the crew was just lovely. You know, we became family. My DP was My DP gave me a giant painting at the end that he had bid on at the airport that has all of my cars and my color palette on it. So I guess I didn't know. Have I shown you that, Ashley? I should show you the painting. Yeah, he was like, I got this for you because this has every one of your car colors and your palette that you wanted. And him and Mike like signed it for me, and he was crying and I was crying, and like, you know, it was I became
That's amazing. I didn't know.
Yeah, and he signed a special note for me, and I had gotten him. He loves the movies with his son. We just had a really, everything was worked out exactly how it was supposed to. And I ended up getting 2 different mentors, and that worked out perfectly for me too, because I got to watch 2 very different styles, which was literally everything that happened was supposed to happen that way. Because I was the guinea pig too. I call myself the guinea pig of the program. It was cool because LL, who has also directed Sign Seals, ended up coming on and being the second half of my program. We had a discussion. Yeah, Linda Lisa Hayter. Thank you. We had a. I know. I just call everybody nicknames. Nobody knows who I'm talking about. We had a talk, and she was like, "What do you need from me?" And I said, "I needed to feel like, you know, when you're a mom and you take your kid to the playground, and you let them go and they walk away from you, but you're still sitting there, and you'll probably see me like fall down the slide and smash my teeth a couple times, but I'm okay." You know, I just need to know that you're there and that I can look at you if I really need you, and I can run to you and she was like, "No problem, done." And we worked so, and there were days where I went to her, you know, and I was like, "I need your help. I don't know how to block 6 people in a scene where I'm shooting a show in a show. How do I do this?" And she was like, "That's what I'm here for." So, but we had a really beautiful relationship where she let me take the reins the way I needed to take the reins, but was, you know, padding there if I needed to call. She's like my big sister. Great.
That sounds like such a dream set to have that, you know, established support. Yeah, a support system. I'm curious for both of you, you know, listening to almost these not career changes, I would say career additions. So traditionally in front of the camera, you know, wanting, you know, going in on the business side, the executive side, going behind the camera, all these changes you guys are making. How, you know, were those always kind of in the back of your mind that I'm not always going to be an actress, I'm going to do these other things? Or, you know, what's your support system, whether it be family or, you know, growing up or spouses and family now? What is it that kind of gives you that, that strength to think of these new ideas and to make these career additions? I don't want to call them changes because you're not giving up on, you know, letting go of what you did, but these career additions.
Ashley, do you? Oh, okay.
Oh,
no, okay. No, you. You know, much to my annoyance, my mother was right, which is so annoying. You know, like the most annoying. Because she used to say to me all the time, like, "I think that you could produce," and I was like, "I'm not a producer. I'm an actor," you know. And then she would go, "I think you could direct," and I was like, "Go away!" Like, I just want to be like, it was so annoying. I found her so annoying. And then as time grew, I was like, maybe I do want to do that. And she was right. I've done every part of the film industry. I worked in casting for 5 years as a reader for one of the top casting directors in Canada. I owned a restaurant for a couple of years. That really showed me that I could find financing for things because I had to find financing. Restaurants have a 90% failure rate. So the fact that I got money for that made me think, well, I could get money for film. And then producing I don't know, it just made sense because I've owned small businesses all my life. I had an event planning company. I had a modeling agency. And then when I started producing, it felt good, but something was missing. And then a friend asked me to direct. And that morning, I remember it so crystal clear. Driving, it was a night shoot. I was driving and the sun was coming up. And I was like, oh, I think I'm supposed to be here. Like, this feels right. And I don't know why it feels right. It just feels right. And then from there, once I get bit with a bug, like, I can't stop. And also when I hear no, it's like fuel, you know? So the more people are like, I mean, everybody said not to buy a restaurant, which by the way, they were right. And I was like, I'm gonna buy a restaurant. I'm gonna do it. Cause you said I can't. So watch me. Like, that's just how I've been fueled. And I also think now there are women out there. Finally, I get people that I can look up to. Issa Rae, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, you know, all these women that are writing, producing, directing their own stuff and not giving up what they've had to give up. Now we have examples of women that we can go, oh, I can do all three. Why can't I do that? So yeah, I have a huge support system. My mom is like, told you, in so many words. So my mother is a professor of 18th century English literature. And then you become one and you're like, I am right. And one day you're going to say that to me too, to your own children.
Right,
and I can't wait, especially my daughter, because she's the one who's like, no. And I'm like, oh, you're good at, I can't wait till I get that call. And I won't gloat. I'll gloat on the inside, not to
I sent a meme to one of my sons the other day, and it was, Mom was right, but she could have changed her tone.
That's fair.
She's wrong about something.
That's fair.
Yeah. Got to make her wrong about something.
Yeah. Ashley, what about you? What made this kind of this executive or this business pieces to your, obviously very successful acting career?
Yeah, it's funny. The world turns, and I was during rehearsal one day, and I've told the story before Crystal started.
I love it. Go on.
Basically, they shot on these big broadcast cameras that kind of float, and I thought it was so cool. It was like a spaceship. So it didn't float. I'm making it sound like it was like, no, it was more of a gliding effect on the floor. Anyway, so one day I asked the cameraman if I could like get back there behind the camera and kind of hold it and try to kind of frame up something. And he said, he had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and he said, why don't you stick to wearing your bikini? And my first thought was like, well, why can't I wear a bikini and hold the camera, but at the same time, I think it was just the beginning of me sort of realizing I needed to really stay in my lane and not get in trouble and stay small. And I think, it's interesting because I do feel like women are so perceptive. We're really good at picking up on the mood of a room. We can read people. I can walk, I'm sure you guys have this too. I can walk in and be like, oh, she's having a hard day. She wants to cry. She needs a friend. I'm going to laugh really hard at her joke. We all have like a really good sort of intuition there. And the truth is that intuition has served me really well over the years. Like, I'm a total pleasure to hang out with.
True. I can attest. That's true.
I'm fun. I'm like great at a dinner party. I'm a good, reliable, people used to say like, I'm such a reliable hire. I've been acting since I was 11, and I'm just, but part of that is because I have that intuition, and it's so tricky, because as a woman, you want to be bold and you want to ask and you want to push, but at the same time, you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to get fired. You don't want anyone to think that you think you're better than you are. You want to make sure that you're, within the bounds all the time. So, that's sort of encompasses a lot of, I think my life as a woman. And then what's interesting is about 6 years ago, and I can tell that because I have to figure out which baby I had just had, but it was about 6 years ago. I got this Fox pilot where I was the female lead, and I got fired. And I got replaced by this, by the way, like amazing woman who I love. But it was so embarrassing because it went up on Deadline on a Friday, and the articles that go on Deadline on Friday stay up the whole weekend. It's like the homepage of Deadline was like Ashley Williams replaced from this big Fox pilot, which by the way didn't get picked up. Which was kind of satisfying. But anyway, so the day that this got announced, this friend of mine, who was at the time a really high-powered executive at Netflix, texted me, and she just wrote vodka or tequila. And I wrote tequila, and she said, what time? I'll come to your place, right? So she shows up, and she made me this margarita. And she was like, I Googled you, like after I looked you up on Deadline, and you've been doing this for so long. You're a reliable hire. You're, you know everybody. You have a really good reputation. Why are you not directing? And I said, honestly, it just feels like something that men do. Like, I don't really, I don't want to go outside my lane. I don't want to assume, And she said, we actually don't have enough female directors. And I said, well, I'm not trained. And she looked at me and she said, you got to train yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this, she charged me with it, you know, and there began what I call my postgraduate program of my own making.
Right. It's that not asking for permission, you know, piece again. Like, no, you don't have to ask, just do it.
Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started taking classes. I started
Mm-hmm.
reading books.
Mm-hmm.
I started getting in touch with everybody I've ever known and asking if I could come shadow. You know, I wrote a short film a week for 9 weeks, and one of them wasn't terrible, so we shot it, and it ended up premiering at Sundance, which was a miracle. And then word got around, people saw my short, and then I got my first movie to direct, which was also a miracle. And sort of things were off to the races. But again and again, there are these, or were, a lot of them are gone now in the last 6 months, but these diversity and inclusion programs all over our industry.
Right.
And I started applying to them right away, you know, short film contests,
Mm-hmm.
apply for a grant, you know, apply to AFI, you know, all these like amazing, the Warner Brothers program, and I applied every year to all of them, and I've gotten rejected from every single one.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here I am at this network that makes 100 movies a year. And I thought, you know, that's really interesting. I have more access than the average bear.
Right.
You know, I wonder if I could sort of start my own program and help out people just like me who just can't seem to get a foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, by the way, like I had them a little bit of money to pay for my own short film. It was a teeny tiny budget, but I paid for it, you know, out of my own pocket. Not everybody has that privilege, you know? So anyway, that's also sort of how the program came about. But, you know, backing up, I like to call it a parallel career. You know, I'll always be an actor. I love acting. It's also the most lucrative. So I'm not really in a position to start passing on acting jobs. But, you know, I do see myself working as a director for the next 20 years. And I don't know if I'll be acting for the next 20 years.
Right,
you know,
right.
I was saying at the time, like, how long can I pull off the like doe-eyed baker looking for love in a small town when I'm like 67 years old? Like, are people going to go for that? I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Yes,
but
and you're going to fall in love with a 35-year-old man. He's going to fall in love with you back. And that
There
is the
you go.
new
We love
Hallmark
that
pitch
line.
for me.
Sure. And when I'm not shooting that movie, I'd like to be directing the young, gorgeous, doe-eyed, you know.
Right. Well, I was going to ask the question of if you did have to pick one, what would it be? But I don't think right now you can't pick one, right? If you had to choose between writing, directing.
Here's the great news. We don't have to.
Yeah, we don't have to.
You know,
exactly.
One of the first, and it is an interesting thing that I see a lot in our industry, especially like, Crystal, have you had this like since you've started directing? I have a lot of people be like, well, which one are you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would like to be greedy enough that I don't actually have to answer that question. One of my first mentors that I shadowed is a guy named Seth Gordon. Incredible director, started out in documentaries, then went to comedies, then went to TV, then went to like a procedural. And I was like, this is one of my number one teachers. He hasn't put himself in a lane, you know. Right now I'm shadowing a guy named Michael Goy who worked on all of Ryan Murphy's shows. So he was doing American Horror Story and all this stuff. And then he said, you know what? I want to move into like procedural television that shoots in LA. He had to go take the Warner Brothers directing program after he directed 60 movies and, you know, probably 30 episodes of television, just because the industry was like, no, you're the American Horror Story guy. You know, and I want to break that down. Like, why?
Yeah.
Don't put me in a box. You know?
Yeah.
Well, there's so many. I was just talking to someone, and they were talking about, you know, I wanted to be an actor and I didn't like the parts. So I wrote my own parts. And then I was so proud of what I wrote, I didn't want to give it up to somebody else to direct. So I'm directing what I write. And I think there just seems to be this evolution of, I am not in a lane. I don't have to be, you know, I don't have to be in one lane. And, you know, I love that you can find that at Hallmark. And, you know, coming back to, you tried out all these different programs and you're getting rejected, and the light goes on to say, well, then I'll create my own program, and I have a place that's going to, that loves me and is going to accept it, and you can present it and it's there, and then it's just, you're just opening up doors for yourself while you're opening up doors for other people. And that just seems like the ultimate, what we need, just people to do. We need women to do, but we need people to do. There's always more room. There's always more room at the table. There's always more room. And I love, love, love what you guys are doing. I keep meaning to tell you, so because of the topic of shifting gears, so we had a woman on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Her name's Amelia Hartford. Have you guys heard of Amelia? She, you have to go back, look her up on YouTube, but you can listen to our podcast with her too. But she was a driver in Gran Turismo, the movie. Oh. But she started to become that driver. She rebuilds cars. She drives on the circuit. She is this stunningly beautiful young 20-year-old woman who is with her butt sticking out the hood of a car 99% of the time, because she is rebuilding, repainting, designing. It was the most fascinating conversation. But when we got the outreach from Hallmark and we were talking and I saw I was shifting gears and I looked at it, it's like, oh my God, I have to tell them about Amelia, because she's like a real life person running a garage. Her father passed away when she was young, and cars were what they shared, but she took it as a career, and as and it's gotten her into movies, and it's gotten her into acting, and she's a great person, just a really, really neat. So you have to look her up and see, so it ties in with your story.
So I'll tell you something funny. The garage that we used in Shifting Gears is a family-owned business, a tiny little family-owned business, and his wife, that was a husband and wife mechanic duo, and she was a mechanic. And I asked him how hard that was, because they're a bit older, and so he was like, oh, it was a nightmare. People never wanted to give her a shot. And her daughter-in-law is also one of their top mechanics now, and her daughter-in-law is now, they just bought the shop. So it's really cool to see, guys, like, women can do these jobs. Of course we can. We were just never invited to that space. We were told to not go to that space because it belonged to someone. No spaces belong to anybody. Like, you get to just go do whatever you want. So I'm so happy to hear that. Like, this generation is different, It's nice.
No, it is. And she's fantastic. So yeah, you'll have to look her up. But that marrying that, what you said, Ashley, of it, what you're doing of putting women in director's role, that's traditionally male, and then the film is, a traditionally male space is, I love that. That's fantastic. And I know we are so almost out of time. I can't believe it. But I love to ask this question. So I know you guys are super, super busy right now, but what, I love to hear what you're watching or reading or listening to that is kind of your escape or your downtime. What are you loving to watch or read or listen to right now?
I'm only laughing because I can't admit it. Like, I'm like, guys, I should be talking about something.
Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, you can admit it because it comes up all the time.
I have watched every episode of Love is Blind. I am obsessed with Love is Blind. I watched it during filming of 15 years. I need to watch something that I'm just like, especially when I was filming, I need the narrative stuff to stop so I can just watch random stuff. But Love is Blind is my favorite. I love it. I also somehow got sucked into watching the show called Too Hot to Handle, and that's 10 hours of my life I'll never get back. But I watched that entire season too. But they really grow at the end, so that's nice. That's kind of where I'm at. But I'm just reading books about filming and writing. Those are mainly the books that I'm reading, and I get sent books by my mentor all the time to read. So I have so many editing books and things that he wants me to. So I have a mentor that I love in my own life, and he sends me books every week to inspire me. But that's what I'm watching. Love is Blind. I
love it. Don't be embarrassed. Love is Blind comes up a lot.
It's amazing. And I rewatch Fleabag constantly because that's a fun show, and I'm in love with Hot Priest, and I just want to marry him. He doesn't want to marry me, but the dream is to die for me. So it's okay.
It's not about him.
I know. It's about Hot Priest. What are you watching, Ashley?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned, Crystal, like, so much of the time when I'm like, ooh, I'm going to go read or I'm going to go watch something, I go to what I have to watch for work. So right now, like, you know, it's kind of like our work, especially as women, like our work has corrupted even our downtime, which is kind of sad. So so honestly, right now I'm studying this show called The Rookie on ABC. I'm studying Solution 15, which I'm also shadowing on right now. But then there's this, like, I'll be on like the Peloton, all my whole family's asleep. It's like 9:15 at night, and I'll be like, boop, and I put on The Bachelor. See? I really only allow myself like 15 minutes because I'm like, this is so dumb. This is so anti-feminist. Like, what are you doing, Ashley?
Right.
I'm just fascinated by like their hair and what they're drinking and like, do they really think he's hot? They do. Like, and the women turning on each other just makes me sick to my stomach. And that's usually when I turn it off. But it's
a social experiment.
What?
You're right.
It's a social experiment. Love is Blind is a social experiment too. That's the part I think we like watching, is like, would all those women find him hot in real life? No, but it's a competitive thing. So if you put them all in a jar and you're like, this is the only prize, then we're all competing. That's what it is, I think.
Right.
And that's interesting.
But I do.
Well, I'm curious always. Is it really real? Is it really? They're like, you know, my sister's obsessed with Naked and Afraid. She's like, but they're out there all by themselves, and they're this. I'm like, well, who's carrying the camera? Somebody's there.
Yeah.
You know, what are the waivers? I'm always like, what are the waivers they have to sign? What if they, they've got to have they're social experiments. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I do find it really interesting. Like, so much of what I become obsessed with and immersed in with a show like Love is Blind or The Bachelor, whatever, is the dynamics between the women, because I am so headstrong about, there's sort of this older theory about, women who came up in our industry in the, the 80s and 90s and, early aughts, we're much more sort of cutthroat and competitive. And I will not buy that. The world is wide enough for all of us. And, to bring it back to your very first question, I really truly believe in like a pocket squad of women who will always have your back no matter what. And I really think that is where we are now, and that is the future. And when I start to smell competition or that somebody's, it literally turns my stomach. So I feel like a lot of what I'm doing is watching for that in those shows. Like, like suddenly, like in Love is Blind, it'll be like two people are thick as thieves, but then she'll find out that she dated him before the show. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yes, of course. I watch that.
Love is Blind. I do watch Love is Blind. Of course. They were like cuddling on the couch and like there for each other through the trauma of it. And then suddenly it was like weird and backstabby. And that is fascinating to me because I think it's old and I think it's the worst of us.
That is kind of an old.
Yeah,
it is. Also, there was only I think a lot of that competitive that came from because there was only one seat at the table for us. You know what I mean? And so they were doing it. It's on purpose too, because if we're all fighting against each other, then we're too busy fighting against each other to come back and be like, hey, I would like more than one seat. Why is there only one seat instead of fighting for the seat?
Exactly.
So I do, but I think things are changing more now. I definitely, like my co-star on Signs Dale, Kristen Booth, who's in the movie, when I first worked with her, I was nervous to work with any female actor because sometimes there is that weird competitiveness. Never at all. We never had any of that, man. She was just like, we were just, Ashley and I met in zero like there just wasn't. We didn't, because I think we all are learning that what we have to offer is so specific to us. Like it wouldn't matter if we competed against each other. I'm not going to offer what you offer because you're a different person. So why don't I just enhance and then you enhance and then we just take turns. And then when, you're going to need someone to push you and you're going to need someone to pull you back at certain times so that we'll just take turns. It's fine.
I couldn't agree more with that. And it's, thank you for bringing that up. Cause I really relate to that. And it's really,
100%. That is such an old story. And I love hearing that Hallmark is supportive. I love hearing about when I started reading, I'm like, this is just so what women in entertainment is all about. We have a big summit in LA. And I was just telling Emma before you guys came on, I'm like, we've got to get Ashley to the summit to talk about this and talk about programs like this. And, we try to get the word out about a lot of what you were talking about, the different programs that the festivals offer and grants and different things. But kind of taking that next step to say, I'm going to build it. And I'm a Kansas City girl, so Hallmark doing this is like, this is our hometown. And they are, just hearing good things about it is so, so, so heartwarming of this. But I want to, I want to make sure that we keep following this, that we keep getting the word out. And as it grows, please, please, please keep us updated so that it's in our newsletter. It's on, that we're all talking about it and getting the word out for these things. We love this. We love it.
Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you. I know we went over. I hope you didn't have a hard, we're not running into anything, but thank you so much for being here with us today. We are going to get this episode up and ready to go with so people can know about it when the show premieres. I can't wait to watch it. And thank you guys. It was so nice meeting you.
Thank you so much for having us.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womeninentertainment.com.